love somebody. Is this thing on sometime? Is that on? Okay. Thank you very much. What a beautiful audience. I feel pretty good tonight, but, you know, I think I'm starting to walk in my sleep again. Yeah, this morning I woke up and there were footprints on the ceiling. We had such a wonderful party at our house last night. It was in honor of Les Brown, because he's got such a great band and such great arrangements. Yeah, Les showed up with his wife and his girlfriend, which is one of the greatest arrangements I ever heard of. Okay, baby. I really had a lot of fun last night. When I got up this morning, I looked myself right in the eye, and if you think that's easy, you try it without a mirror. No. I had a real nice day. My kids came home from school early, you know, and they surprised me. They came in and told me they washed my car. Yeah, now all they got to do is get it out of the pool and dry it. Very bad thing here, the camera, you guys. Now, don't you go away, because here's a nice fellow to tell you who my guests are tonight.
The Dean Martin Show, starring Bing Crosby, Tom DeLuise, Lena Horne, and Les Brown and his band of renown.
I love to get you on a slow boat to China, all to myself alone. Get you and keep you in my arms evermore. Leave all your lovers weeping on the faraway shore. Out on the briny with the moon, big and shiny, melting your heart of stone. I love to get you on a slow boat to China, well, all to myself alone. Out on the briny, big and shiny, melting your heart of stone. I'm out to get you on a slow boat to China. What am I yelling about? I got the job. Oh, to myself alone. Oh, alone on a boat. Oh, what a singer this. Oh, he sings like a bird. And his tonsils must sleep in a bird cage. Well, let me tell you about my wonderful guest tonight. My pal Bing Crosby's here. And Bing's such a nice guy. I'm telling you, he's always bringing me presents. Like today, he brought me a gift that really warmed my heart. A mustard plaster. Yeah, and I never saw such a relaxed guy. Every night after dinner, he puts a leash on his turtle and takes it out for a walk. And one of the greatest lady singers of all time, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Lena Horne, she is here. And then we had the funny Dom DeLuise. He came over to the house last night, and he wouldn't even have a drink. Yeah, all night long, I'm making him martinis, and he's pouring them into the goldfish bowl. I never would have found out if I didn't see that goldfish jump out of the bowl and mug the cat.
Hold it, Dean.
But I want to hold
it. Hold it, Dean.
What?
Hold it. I heard. Thank you. Save it for the end. I heard what you said about me, Dean.
What did I say?
Me who nursed you when you were hungry, fed you when you were all hungry also. I feed him whenever he's hungry or anything.
What do you think I buy these cards for? Look at them.
I fed you when you were sick and all that stuff, and I picked you up when you were down and out.
What in heaven's name are you talking about?
Last night after the party. Don't you remember? Oh. And that's where the laugh is.
What?
Listen, but just to prove to you that I don't hold a grudge. Go on. You're free. I got a song for you, a perfect song. Listen, Dino.
How does it go?
Here it is. All right, hit it more or less. Dicky, I'm tricky and slightly ricky-ticky, but life could be kicky with you. 1, 2, 3, you made it sicky. You made it oh so wicky-wacky, Vicky. Oh, Vicky, it's you.
Get out of here. That's Tom DeLuise, my pal. He's a real funny guy, and you'll see lots more of him later on. And you're going to save it for the end. I wish you could see what's happening here in the studio right now. This is for real. Suddenly it's very crowded because a lot of people who work behind the scenes have taken a moment away from their jobs to come out here and watch. It's been like that all day around here, and it's the same wherever this lady appears. People gather to be part of the excitement of this wonderful Miss Lena Horne.
She is America's swinging singer. Here she is, a regular ring-ding-dinger. We bless the wonderful day that she was born. Miss Lena Horne.
Love me while you may. Tomorrow I may fly away. I want your gentle touch, your continental touch, your elemental touch. And you want me to, I know that you do. You better love me while I'm here. I have been known to disappear, so don't let this miracle fade away. The clock ticks fast above me. If you think fondly of me, you better love me while you may. Yes, you better love me while you may. Tomorrow I may fly away. I need your gentle touch, your continental touch, your elemental touch. You want me to, oh yes you do. You better love me while I'm here. I have been known to disappear, so don't let this miracle fade away. The clock ticks fast above me. If you think fondly of me, you better love me. You better love me. Yes, you better love me while you may. Love me.
Lena, you know, this is quite an occasion.
Champagne, no
Yeah.
miss.
Oh, yes, I've had this on ice for 2 years. You know, just waiting for you to come on this show.
Well,
I mean,
this is too much. Roses in the dressing room and champagne. I can't stand it.
well, you know, just let me, you know, spoil you a little, that's all.
Okay.
Huh? Okay? Yeah, but it's, you know, oh, boy. Did you say anything?
Can we sing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, it's not a very classy tune. It's just bumming around.
Well, I'd enjoy bumming around with you a little bit.
Got an old slouch hat. I got my roll on my shoulder. Well, I'm as free as a breeze, and I'll do as I please.
just bumming around. I got a million friends. I don't feel any older.
I got nothing to lose, not even the blues,
just bumming around.
whenever worry starts to bothering me.
I grab my coat, my old slouch hat, hit the trail again, you see.
I ain't got a dime.
I don't care where I'm going.
I'm as free as a breeze, or do as you please, just bumming around. Whenever worries start to bothering me.
I grab my coat, my old slouch hat, hit the trail again, you see.
I ain't got no dime.
Don't care where I'm going.
I'm as free as the breeze, and I'll do as I please, just bumming around, just bumming around, just around. Miss Lena Horne, ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful, lovely, terrible, beautiful Miss Lena Horne.
Before our next number, here's a late news item. Underworld kingpin Mario Martino was released today from the federal penitentiary after he turned state's evidence against the notorious O'Brien gang. Local authorities fear for Martino's life.
Figaro, 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 Figaro. Hackett! Oh, look who it is! Oh, Mr. Mario Martino, my favorite customer. Hey, what have you been doing? 6 months? That's a beautiful hat, Mr. Martino. Here, let me light your cigarette for you, Mr. Martino. Hey, take it easy. It's only a lighter. Hey, you're looking wonderful. Let me take that jacket. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Look at that. Look at the jacket there. Ooh, it's still warm. Sit down, Mr. Martino. Oh, we're really glad to see you. I tell you the truth. Mr. Martino, here. Let me put this on you. You see nice? There you go. Oh, what a relax. Here's a nice paper for you, Mr. Martino. What would you like to talk about? Let me get you a nice hot towel first, and that'll make you relax, right? You got a nice tan, Mr. Martino. They let you walk around in the yard? What do you feel like talking about? Baseball, politics, jokes? Crime does not pay? That's what they think, right, Mr. Martino? All right, I'll get you some jokes. Thanks. I was getting a cold. I'll get you a nice hot towel, Mr. Martino. Hey, you kids, get away with them firecrackers! Hot, 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 here, what? You took that like a man, Mr. Martino. All right, Mr. Martino, what would you like? What would you like? A few jokes, huh? You mind sitting up, Mr. Martino? Here, I'll help you. Here we go. Atta boy. Thank you, Mr. Martino. Mr. Martino, did you hear about the man who came home 2 hours early and he sees a cigar in the ashtray and he says to his wife, "Hey, where'd that cigar come from?" And a voice from the closet says, "Havana." Did you like that one? Here, let me just prop you up, Mr. Martino. Here, let me get this up for you. There you go. Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Martino. I'll do it right in this area here. Mr. Martino, you look awful tired. You must be shot. You know, it was so cold yesterday, I saw a Puck with his hands in his own rocket. Wait a minute. Hey, Mr. Martino, can I do that over? I saw a cop with his hands in his own pocket. Thanks. Hey, Mr. Martino, what do you get when you cross an owl and a goat? A hoot nanny. All right. You work good. Mr. Martino, what do you get when you cross a tiger and a parakeet? You don't know? I don't know either. But when he sings, you better listen. You know, I'm going to tell you this joke, and you're going to die laughing. The first man on the moon, he comes up to an 11-foot woman. She's blonde on one side, red-headed on the other. To each his own. And he walks up to her and he says, "Take me to your ladder. I'll see you later. Hey, listen, I wouldn't want to share a cell with you, Mr. Martino. Did you hear the one about a dime? A drunk puts a dime in a parking meter, and the meter goes to 60, you know? And he looks, he says, "Oh, my goodness, I lost 100 pounds." Hey, this one's gonna kill you. A man was cooking a chicken on a rotisserie in his backyard, and he's singing, "Figaro, Figaro, Figaro, Figaro." And a drunk walks by, and he says to the guy, "You got a great voice, but I think your muck is on fire." Here we go. Okay, Mr. Martino. Hey, Mr. Martino, where does a 500-pound gorilla sleep? Any place. Mr. Martino. Mr. Martino. Hey, help. I'll call you.
I hit my ball that good. Let's see which is which. Oh, this is me. It's got BC on it.
BC?
Yeah.
I thought that's when you bought it.
Here now. Say, have you seen our wayward friend Phil Harris lately?
Oh, yes. I had a golf date with him yesterday, but I stood him up. I had to. He kept falling down.
Oh.
I had a flat tire. That was the first time I got a hole-in-one. That's a little golf joke, you know? That was staggering, wasn't it?
Enough of this. Now, give me my 9-iron, will you?
You want your 9-iron?
My
Very
9-iron.
good. Would you like to see an imitation of a midget playing golf? Okay. Here he is. Take it then. 2.5. Well, you know, usually you say 4, but he's such a little guy. Then I'll get you another. Okay, here we go. Hey. Here it is. Here is your 9-iron.
These aren't 9-irons.
I know, I lost your 9-iron, so I got you 7 and a 2. Unless you want an 8 and a 1 or a 4 and a 5. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, there was a big piece of marshmallow.
Look, will you just stand over there and don't
say a word. Don't say a word.
Just be quiet.
Hey,
4.
hold it! Hold it! Ooh, that's bad. That is a big, you're limiting your swing. You see, in fact, be very careful. Did you know that Arnold Palmer does the same thing? That's why he'll never be a great golfer.
Oh.
I don't know what I'd do without you, but I'd rather.
Thank you. Look, Junior, the man's trying to make a shot. Now stand clear and keep your eye on the ball and don't bother him.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
You okay?
Listen, I'm not bothering you. Is that the truth? Now, listen, he says bother. But I mean, am I you tell me the truth. Move your lips and tell me if I'm bothering you. Just tell me if I'm because tell me the truth. Just say it if you're mad at me. I'm not mad at you. You see? He's not mad. All right, I'm glad that you're not mad at me. All right, go ahead. Go ahead. You know, the reason I am glad that you're not mad at me is because you're out here to relax and have fun. Isn't that true,
That's
Bingo?
true, 100%.
See that? Bingo, I play him every Sunday. At church. All right, listen, now one of the most important rules of golf is addressing the ball.
Exactly.
Of course, you must stand there and address the ball. If you lose it, then they know where to mail it to. Tell the truth, if you had jokes like this with Bob Hope, Dorothy Lamour never would have dumped you, right?
Look, I'm not enjoying your repartee, but let's press on. We've got to go because I have a recording session I'm due there in about 2
A
hours.
record?
I've
Of
got to
course,
get on here.
that's right.
Clear, stand clear. Take a
Wait,
shot.
listen,
What's
listen.
the
If
matter?
you record, I have got a great song.
Not you.
Yes, no. Do I lie? Okay, all right.
Let's hear the song.
They say that man's best friend is his dog, not a chicken or a frog. Though I love my Rover true, I just don't know what to do. Eat your heart out, 'cause I'd rather have puppies with you.
It's very clever, but it just isn't my kind of song. It isn't me.
Wait till you hear the finish.
Let me hear.
Ba 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 ba.
Get out of here. Take a walk. Well, you know, no more songs. Come on.
No more,
Wait a
Joe.
minute.
No more,
Gotta
Joe.
play.
Do you mind if we play a little golf? I don't mind you playing, but you are not listening to me, and that is why you are losing.
Who's losing?
You are. I got it right here in my pocket. Look at this. And the first hole, you got 5, right?
I had a 3.
Yeah.
I know, but I gave you a 2-point penalty for hollering at me. Who's hollering? I thought that was you before. It was. Yeah, what are you laughing at? I gave you 3 points for
what?
not liking my song.
Oh, well,
I can... All right, listen, here's what I'm going to do. Start off from the beginning. You know, we'll both, all of us, will go back to the first hole.
You're sweet.
You know what I mean?
like that.
And on the way, don't stop for lunch.
Why not?
I'll make it. I'll just take this, 2 pieces of bread. You'll have a club sandwich. You'll have
Meantime, you keep all them cards and letters coming in, folks. Yeah. My Jeannie and I are so anxious to read all your letters, the cards and letters, rather. Some mornings we meet the mailman halfway down the block and help him carry his bag. Oh, boy, you got a good occasion. This week, I sure want to thank Miss Barbara Itzikman. You know Barbara? Yeah, for sending me that wonderful porcupine. Sure is a wonderful pet, Mrs. Itzikman. Oh, real wonderful. Every night I put that porcupine in my bed, and it gives Jeannie someone to cuddle up to till I get home. Everybody loves somebody sometime. Everybody loves it. Boy, that's straight on, yeah. Baba with you. That sometime.